Love is like a magic penny. Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between, and thank you for watching How to Do Everything so you don't have to, the program where we help you learn how to think like a producer. My name is Jesse Kester, and today we're asking the $1 million question. I call it that because if you don't have a good answer, your business can't scale up. That question is, how do you retain talent? If you can't retain talent, your business will only ever be the size of you, which is fine if you want a smaller business, but you're limited to 8, maybe 12 hours in a day and 5, maybe 6 days in a week. If you want to be creating more than what a single human being can create in that time, you need to be hiring people and, more importantly, retaining them. In the same way you don't want to be replacing a broken camera every 8 weeks, you can't afford to wind up an entirely new staff every month and a half. Retention is almost always more cost-effective than onboarding, so retention should be at the front of your mind. And you don't just want warm bodies on productions. You want talented, creative, energized artists who are passionate about their contributions to your projects. And that is what we're going to address in this video. Let's get into it so you can get back to hiring the kind of person who makes your project better in ways you couldn't have imagined. And that's the beauty of being a producer. You don't have to be brilliant. You just have to figure out how to keep brilliant people in your orbit. If we're talking raw statistics, it's much more likely that you can cultivate the skill of keeping intelligent people close to you than it is that you were born a genius who can span all the skills required to run a sustainable business and create amazing art. I'm just saying this is a numbers game. The first thing I'd like to do before answering this question, though, is to crumble it up and to throw it in the trash because it's absolutely the wrong question, and here's why. Employees don't care a whit about your talent retention concerns. In fact, we work with a lot of freelancers, and they seem to revel in tales of talent getting bumped from our roster because it means more work for them. So instead of asking how to retain employees, we should be asking the actual question we need to answer: what do employees want? Easy answer, stupid answer, money. You must pay your employees a living wage if you want to retain them. There's no way around it. And if you haven't gotten that far, if you're of the mind that you're getting a better deal by working with people who are willing to trade their time for experience instead of getting paid, you need to think in more complicated ways. The strength of your business can be easily understood by how deeply it's integrated within your community. You need to bring as much value to your community as your community brings to you. Without value, your community has no reason to retain you. This doesn't mean snacks and a credit. This means bringing actual, sustainable value to the people who work with you. Easy answer, stupid answer, money. You have to pay a living wage if you want people to come back. So how do you calculate that? Easy as can be. Rent times 3 over 20. Let's break that down into 2 parts. First, rent times 3 and then over 20. Look up the average cost of rent for a single bedroom apartment in your area and multiply that number by 3. People need enough money to cover their rent. That's the first third. They need enough money to cover bills and groceries. That's the second third. And then they need money to actually live life, to explore new ideas and places, to pull on threads that put new ideas into their heads and new feelings into their hearts. Because guess what? When they come in on Monday morning, energized and full of new ideas, your production receives the benefit of that energy and brilliance. That's what you're buying when you hire a person. So we've got our rent times 3 covered. Over 20 means that we assume people should work 20 days a month and have 10 days off to take care of the things they need to take care of. I don't care what that is. My hope is that the people we work with spend time doing exactly what they want to do because, like I said, we want them coming in energized and full of new ideas. So if a 1-bedroom in your area costs $1,500 a month, the person who lives there should be making $4,500 a month. To make that in 20 days, they'd have to be paid $225 a day. So you should be paying at least that for your entry-level talent, and your numbers should go up from there as people become more integral to your productions. 2 quick things about people. Number 1, they are a better investment than gear. And number 2, just like gear, you want to be thinking in terms of quality, not quantity. Especially in small business and especially in media production, I hear producers bragging about how little they pay their teams. These people sound insane to me. Like, yes, I could buy 20 Chromebooks instead of 1 MacBook Pro, but I don't need 20 Chromebooks. I need 1 MacBook Pro. 20 Chromebooks are not 1 MacBook Pro. 20 people with free time and a curiosity about film production are not 1 DP that has decades of experience shooting film on an Arri. That covers money, but money isn't at the core of what people need. Look, I'm not pro or anti-capitalism. It's just a mode of organizing information. Capitalism is not essential to the human experience. People existed before it. People will exist after it. In the absence of man, money has no value. So this whole money for time and services thing makes sense within the context of capitalism, but retaining employees requires that you think beyond that mode of organizing information. The reason that people go into the creative arts is because they want to create things that they're proud of. I mean, the reason people get out of bed in the morning is that they want to create things they're proud of. How that's expressed varies from person to person and culture to culture, but that seems to be a fairly consistent impulse in my experience. We want to wake up, contribute to something bigger than ourselves, and go to sleep knowing that the world is a better place for what we've done. If you want to retain incredible people, not just warm bodies that can plug a light into a socket, you need to be considering their employment from that perspective. I call it equity, but keep in mind that equity can be a broad term. Business equity is really hard to navigate, and I don't have much wisdom on that topic. Financial equity is incredibly costly to the business because it's a percentage of what you're bringing in. The kind of equity that we give everyone we hire is creative equity, a sense of ownership over what ends up on screen. And the best way I've found to create the feeling that someone is integral to what we create is by making them integral to what we create. This isn't a life hack or a trick or anything like that. It's a process of consistently asking everyone on your team what they'd like to improve about the shot, the workflow, the client interactions, and then implementing every idea that would improve what you're doing. Also, this isn't rocket science. In fact, I'd consider it to be the opposite of rocket science. You don't have to be a genius to let everyone else be a genius. And we recently pulled a Robert Van Winkle and took this to the extreme on a short film we're producing. We loaded up the car with a trunk full of different cameras, 3 brilliant artists and myself, and we drove out to the desert with the most bare bones of abstract screenplays to shoot a film. The majority of the drive was spent giving the film to the team and asking them what they'd do with it. It proved to be one of the most invigorating and creative projects I've been a part of since arriving in LA. We got back, cut the footage, and only then started writing the ending to the project, which we will be shooting soon. It was a complete repudiation of the traditional workflow where you hammer out the script to the most minute detail before picking up a camera. The project was built entirely around equity, giving the team as much of the project as they wanted to see what they'd put back into it. The enthusiasm, emotion, creativity, and commitment that we got back was proportional to the equity that the team was given. It's an abstract experiment, to be sure, and not one that I expect every producer to copy. But the producers who actually do a project like that, even if it's just once every couple of years, will be all the better equipped to lead teams. Love is like a magic penny. Hold it in your hands and you won't have any. But lend it, spend it, come back so many, they roll all over the floor. Creative equity in media projects functions much the same way because it speaks to what people actually need. Capitalism is a mode of summarizing resources. It doesn't speak to any fundamental need in the marrow of our bones. The downside of capitalism is that it isn't a natural way for humans to express themselves. The upside is that you can conveniently summarize the resources you have to offer a person in order for them to be able to express themselves and to acquire what they need for survival. Rent times 3/20 is a very simple equation and should give your employee plenty of space to manifest themselves in ways that are authentic and invigorating for them. But that doesn't meet the core needs that drive people to conduct the symphony that is their life. Your most fundamental job as a producer is to meet the financial needs of the people you employ. But that's simply not enough. If you want to be a producer who shepherds projects of ever-increasing quality, you need to be building teams of ever-increasing quality. And the only way you're going to be doing that is by retaining talent that has a strong technical knowledge base, but also an eagerness to contribute creatively and emotionally to the projects you're overseeing. And that's where creative equity comes in, one of the most important resources a producer has to share with his team. And if you can learn to share it with your team, you will find that it only increases, just like that magic penny. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please nuke that subscribe button from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Once you've done that, let's all turn off YouTube and go build projects from the ground up with an eye towards sharing as much creative equity as we can so that we can retain the kind of talent that will only increase our standing in the media production landscape, which will result in more and better projects. Lather, rinse, repeat,